Listen carefully. When words fail, silence roars. When you stop reacting, their ego starts collapsing. You see, the most powerful weapon you have is not anger, not arguments, but silence. Because silence is not weakness, silence is intelligence in action. The ego thrives on conflict. It feeds on your reactions, your emotions, your need to prove something. The moment you argue, you give their ego oxygen. The moment you explain yourself, you validate their power. But when you choose silence, their ego is left gasping, desperate for attention, for drama, for validation. Think about this. Why do people provoke you? Why do they insult you? Because they want control over you. They want to dictate your emotions. But if you remain silent, if you smile and walk away, they are left with nothing but their own emptiness. That is the real punishment. Silence is a weapon, not a weakness. It is the most underestimated force in this world. Yet it has the power to shatter egos, break illusions, and turn the strongest into the weakest. The moment you realize this, your entire world changes. Because silence is not about being passive. It is not about being fearful. It is about control. It is about mastering yourself so completely that no one else can dictate your emotions, your reactions, or your peace. People have been conditioned to believe that strength is in speaking, in fighting back, in proving a point. But that is exactly what the weak want you to believe. They want your energy. They want your reaction. They want you to fight. Because when you fight, you step onto their battlefield. And once you are there, you have already lost. The true masters of life never lower themselves into meaningless battles. They do not waste their breath on proving their worth. Because real power is not in noise. It is in presence. Look at the greatest warriors in history. The kings, the sages, the legends. They never wasted time arguing with fools. They never responded to every insult thrown at them. Because they understood something most people never will. Silence forces your opponent to deal with themselves. And nothing terrifies a weak person more than facing their own ego, their own emptiness. When someone attacks you, they are looking for a response. They are testing your emotions. They want to shake you to see if you will break. And the moment you react, they win. But when you choose silence, when you look them in the eye and do not flinch, when you smile and walk away, you become untouchable. Their words lose power. Their ego, the very thing that made them come for you, begins to crumble under its own weight. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in a room are often the quietest? They do not need to prove anything. They do not seek validation. Their presence alone demands respect. Because when you are truly strong, you do not need to shout. You do not need to argue. You simply exist, and the world adjusts to your presence. That is real dominance. That is real power. And yet, the world will try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you that you must fight back, that you must defend yourself, that you must prove your worth. But let me tell you something. When you truly know who you are, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. Let them talk. Let them throw their words like weapons. A warrior does not fear the barking of stray dogs. A king does not engage with peasants throwing stones at his castle. And you, my friend, are far above the petty battles of insecure minds. The moment you realize this, you become free. Free from the need to explain yourself. Free from the urge to defend your reputation. Free from the burden of proving your worth. Because your worth does not come from words. It comes from within. It comes from knowing that silence is not a sign of weakness. It is the highest form of strength. When you choose silence, you are telling the world, I do not need your approval. I do not need your validation. I do not need to waste my energy on meaningless battles. And that, my friend, is the moment you become truly powerful. Because no one can control a person who does not react. No one can manipulate a mind that is at peace. No one can break someone who has nothing to prove. Do you understand the power you hold? The moment you master silence, you become untouchable. No insult can shake you, no criticism can break you, no attack can move you. Because you have risen above it all. The weak argue, the strong observe. The insecure seek attention, the powerful move in silence. And the most beautiful part, silence always wins. Always. Because words are temporary, arguments fade, battles end, but silence lingers. Silence stays in their minds. Silence forces them to question themselves. And that, my friend, is how you destroy their ego without lifting a single finger. Ego feeds on reaction. Starve it and it will die. Imagine this. You're walking down the street and someone shouts an insult at you. Maybe they mock your appearance, your work, your choices. What do most people do? They turn, they react, they engage. Why? Because the natural instinct of the human mind is to defend itself. But ask yourself, does a lion turn when a stray dog barks? Does the sky argue when a crow caws? No, because reacting gives power to the powerless. Ego is like a parasite. It cannot survive on its own. It needs something to latch onto. It feeds off energy, attention, and most of all, your reaction. The more you argue, the stronger it gets. The more you fight, the more it grows. But the moment you refuse to engage, the moment you stop feeding it, it begins to shrink. It suffocates, it crumbles. Think of it like a fire. A raging fire demands oxygen. The more you blow on it, the bigger it gets. But what happens when you stop? When you remove the air, the fuel, the fire dies, slowly at first, then all at once. This is exactly how ego works. The moment you stop responding, the moment you stop justifying yourself, the moment you stop explaining, ego collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. Have you ever had someone pick a fight with you for no reason? They say something rude, they try to provoke you, they push your buttons just to see if they can control you. And what do most people do? They react. They raise their voice. They explain themselves. They argue. But here's the truth. If you react, they win. Because that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to control your emotions, to dictate your mood, to make you dance to their tune. And when you react, you give them power over you. But what happens when you don't react? When you just smile and walk away? When you show them that their words have no effect on you? They are left with nothing. Their ego, which was so desperate for validation, for attention, for engagement, suddenly has no fuel to burn. And that is when their frustration begins. They expected a battle, they wanted a war, but you gave them silence. And silence is the one thing ego cannot handle. Look around you. The people who constantly need to prove themselves, who argue, who fight for the last word. Are they truly strong, or are they just insecure? Strength is never in how loud you are. Strength is in control. A person who controls their tongue, who chooses where to place their energy, who doesn't let others dictate their emotions, that is a person who is truly powerful. Let me tell you a secret. The next time someone tries to test you, tries to trigger you, tries to push you into an argument, don't react. Watch what happens. Watch how their energy shifts. Watch how they start to feel uncomfortable in their own skin. Because without your reaction, they are left with nothing but their own reflection. And most people cannot handle that. Because ego thrives on attention. It needs to be acknowledged. It needs a stage. And the moment you refuse to give it that stage, it begins to crumble. This is the power you hold. The power to destroy an enemy without lifting a single finger. The power to disarm an opponent without speaking a single word. The power to walk away and leave them drowning in their own ego. Try this in your daily life. The next time someone insults you, don't respond. The next time someone challenges you unnecessarily, smile and walk away. The next time someone seeks to drag you into their drama, refuse to participate. And watch what happens. Watch how the energy shifts. Watch how you take back your power. Because the one who stays silent is the one who stays in control. The one who does not react is the one who holds the real strength. The one who refuses to feed the ego is the one who ultimately wins. Always. Arguing with fools makes you one of them. Walk away. Have you ever found yourself in a heated argument with someone who refuses to see reason? Someone who twists your words, refuses to listen, and only wants to prove themselves right? Think back to how that argument ended. Did you walk away feeling victorious, or did you feel exhausted, frustrated, and drained? You see, a fool does not argue to understand, they argue to win. And when you engage, you are stepping into their trap. A fool's greatest weapon is their ability to pull you down to their level. They provoke, they mock, they push you until you react. And the moment you react, you are no longer in control. You have entered their battlefield, playing their game by their rules. And guess what? A fool will always beat you in an argument. Not because they are right, but because they are experienced in nonsense. They are not looking for truth. They are not searching for wisdom. They thrive in chaos. And when you engage, you become a part of their circus. Think of a man shouting nonsense in the middle of the street. You see him waving his arms, screaming about things that make no sense. If you stop and start arguing with him, what happens? Do people see you as the wise one? Or do they see two fools shouting at each other? That is what happens when you argue with people who are not ready to understand. From the outside, there is no difference between the fool and the one arguing with the fool. There is an old saying, never wrestle with a pig, you both get dirty. But the pig enjoys it. This is exactly how foolish arguments work. You get dragged into the mud, into unnecessary conflict, into negativity. And in the end, what do you gain? Nothing. But what do you lose? Your peace, your time, your energy. That is a price too high to pay for something so meaningless. Imagine you are standing in front of a mirror. The mirror shows your reflection exactly as it is. Now imagine a broken mirror. No matter how much you try to fix your reflection, it will always appear distorted. That is what arguing with a fool is like. No matter how much wisdom you share, no matter how logical your words are, their mind is already broken. They do not want to see the truth. They only want to hear their own voice. Have you ever had someone twist your words? You say something simple, and they turn it into something completely different. This is what fools do. They do not listen to understand. They listen to respond. They are not looking for knowledge. They are looking for validation. And when you argue with them, you are giving them exactly what they want. Attention, engagement, fuel for their foolishness. But the moment you stop engaging, the moment you walk away, you strip them of their power. They are left arguing with the wind, with no one to listen, no one to react. And that silence, that is what destroys them. Because nothing frustrates a fool more than being ignored. Try it. The next time someone picks a fight over something meaningless, pause, look at them, and then, without a word, walk away. Watch their reaction. They will fume, they will rant, they will try harder to pull you back, but do not give them what they want. Because your energy is too precious to waste on people who do not deserve it. The greatest minds in history did not waste their time arguing with fools. They walked their own path, untouched by meaningless debates, unbothered by the opinions of those who could not see beyond their own ego. Be that person. Protect your peace. Walk away. Let fools argue with themselves. Because in the end, the one who walks away is the one who truly wins. Silence forces them to face themselves, and that is their greatest fear. Most people are terrified of silence, not because silence is empty, but because silence is a mirror. When there is no noise to distract them, no argument to hide behind, no reaction to fuel their ego, they are left alone with their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own weaknesses. And that is their greatest fear. Look around you. People fill their lives with distractions, constant chatter, endless scrolling, unnecessary arguments, because they do not want to be alone with their own minds. The moment you take away those distractions, the moment you refuse to engage, you force them to face the one thing they have been running from all their lives, themselves. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people get when you do not react to their provocations? They push, they prod, they try to trigger you, but when you remain silent, they begin to shift. They fidget, their confidence starts to shake. Their ego, which once seemed so powerful, begins to crack under the weight of its own emptiness. Because they expected a battle, they expected resistance, they expected validation for their need to dominate. But instead you give them nothing. And in that nothingness, they're left exposed. Silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is power. It is the most sophisticated way of showing that you are in control. Not just of the situation, but of yourself. When you refuse to engage, you refuse to be controlled. You strip away their ability to manipulate your emotions, and that terrifies them. Because now they must sit with their own thoughts, their own actions, their own reality. Think about a person who constantly picks fights, always looking for drama, always needing attention. They survive off reactions. They thrive off emotional responses. The more you argue, the more fuel you give them. But the moment you choose silence, their power over you disappears. And what happens next? They are forced to deal with the real issue, themselves. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone is desperate for your reaction? They insult you, they provoke you, they try to push your buttons. But when you stay silent, they become uncomfortable. They start questioning themselves. Did I say the wrong thing? Why isn't this working? Why aren't they reacting? Their confidence starts to crumble. Because without your response, they have nothing to stand on. Silence is the ultimate test. It reveals who is truly strong and who is merely pretending. The insecure need constant noise to cover up their fears. The truly strong do not